hanging out with Nick Root. This is a correction from last week's interview where we talked about him finishing in second. There was a technical infraction with the leader, so he ends up getting the win. Finished ninth last night, and there are good ninths and there are bad ninths. When you come from the cons, you start 25th and finish ninth. That's a good ninth. So we'll get to that in just a minute, but obviously you are a modified feature winner in your rookie season. I can only imagine how that must feel for you.
Yeah, I wouldn't have expected that. My father didn't win his first year, and I've been running with, the best of the best at Brewerton and Canandaigua, and, we struggled the past few weeks. We got second last Friday to Chris Hallsizer, but after further technical inspection, unfortunately he got DQ'd, and, obviously we were in second, so we inherited the win, but it's not the way you want to win your first race, but, take them how you can. It shows on the points later on in the year.
Yeah, and you're going to get a trophy. You got one last night, right?
So thank you full for Corey and all the guys over at Brewerton and Brewerton Speedway. Since it was my first win, they did a presentation on the track last night for me, which was pretty cool after our autograph session. So, we definitely were excited for that part. I couldn't thank everyone enough for everything we've done. And, last night we started really deep after coming from the Consi. We made it up through the pack quite a bit, and we were going for seventh when the caution came out, and I unfortunately sealed the tire on a late restart, and ended up ninth. But that track is tough passing wise, so I'm just glad we made it into the top 10 from a 20th place starting position.
Yeah, because that is a solid run. Let's be honest, past the 16 cars, right?
Yeah, definitely. We racing with all the good guys, Jimmy, Larry, Timmer, starting back there with all them. Followed Larry up through there most of the way, and then got caught up in some traffic. But we'll take ninth for what we had.
Okay. So how did you find out you won? I hate to go back, but I'm just curious.
Yeah. Well, I got out of BOCES Wednesday afternoon. I had about 20 text messages just from everyone saying congratulations.
So you said, "What the heck?" Right?
And I was like, "Yeah, what?" And I went and looked on Facebook, and I seen Brewerton's post was the first one that popped up, and I was like, "Wow, that's not what I expected."
Mixed reaction, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I wasn't getting my hopes up or anything because
you had no idea, right?
No, we didn't.
Second place was a fine run, right?
Yeah, I was second place. I was battling with Timmer for the last few laps.
Yeah,
and,
that's how you learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what did we learn last week? I know we had the second car out. Did we take anything home from that?
Yeah, I definitely still need to get better in the slick. I'm a little too sideways, but, this track is tough. You run against Williamson, Alex, and Shepard. And, we had the lead for first third of the race, and then Williamson passed us, and I kind of followed him a little bit, and I critiqued a little more on that, but it's tough when you have a big block and it's a really slick track, and you just got to learn all the brakes and everything else.
I talked to Peter Britton after the heat race because you went up in turn 2.
Yeah.
I said, "What happened?" He said, "I think he overcharged that corner a little bit." Was he right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Really
and you talked to me about that beforehand, that you needed to be more aggressive, so I guess now we know where too far is, right?
Yeah, definitely. When track's that slick, you probably shouldn't be driving that hard. There was nothing really up there.
Lesson learned.
Yeah, definitely.
And what were you, and remember this is a PG channel, what were you saying as you watched Peter slip by the inside and you realized it was just a good old-fashioned overcook of the quarter?
I guess.
Do you yell at yourself or no?
Not really. I was like, well, I guess next time it probably shouldn't be that high and on
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
but that's one of those things that until you do that, you don't know, right? So in a roundabout way, it best that it happened in a heat rather than feature, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Did Todd learn anything in the other car?
They had a few early race cautions, and he got in a wreck, but no, he pulled in just so he didn't destroy the car. But,
that had to be hard for him.
We figured out a few things with that car, and we critiqued it a little more, and it ran pretty good last night, so we were definitely happy with that.
All right. Well, again, congratulations. You're a modified feature winner. Now you guys know the story of how it happened. Now we just got to get one here, right?
Yeah, we're big. Obviously it's tough running with Williams
and
Shepard and all the series guys here.
Yeah, it's a tough crowd.
Keep going and see what we can do.
And not go high and jump on the throttle too much in turn 1,
definitely.
right? We know not to do that now. Good job, man. Thank you. Guys, make sure to subscribe, turn on the notifications. But we had to do a correction after the interview we did with him last week. Nice job, Nick. Thank you.